story begins in Australia, where we meet a couple named Greg and Hyder. They are tourists staying at the same hostel, and that's how they get acquainted. They came to Australia with a group, but they decide to break away and experience the shark cage adventure on their own. Together, they board a boat operated by a company called Tucker's Experience, promising thrilling encounters with sharks. Upon arriving at the location, they find that the tourist area is completely deserted, with only one elderly man named Dave present. He informs them that Tucker is on holiday and will not be able to take them out. However, just then, Tucker himself shows up, claiming to be the boat captain and explaining that he runs the entire operation. Despite being on holiday, Tucker agrees to take the couple out. He gets them on the boat, and they begin their journey into the sea. During the ride, Tucker shares his childhood story of surviving a shark attack, leaving permanent scars on his body. He even shows them a newspaper clipping about the attack, explaining how it led to an obsession with sharks. Hyder empathizes with him, noting how difficult his job must be, considering his traumatic experience with sharks. Tucker reassures her that it wasn't the shark's fault, and to prove it, he pours blood into the water, attracting several sharks. It's time to dive, so Tucker places Hyder and Greg inside a metal cage and slowly lowers them into the water. Sharks swim all around them. Hyder, feeling nervous, holds Greg's hand, but gradually starts to enjoy the thrilling experience. Despite being so close to the sharks and knowing they aren't aggressive, they find it fascinating. Afterward, the couple returns to the boat, thanking Tucker for the incredible experience. But just as they're about to leave, Tucker suddenly stabs Greg in the neck and throws him back into the water. Hyder screams, but no one is around to hear her. The scene shifts, and we are introduced to an American girl named Zafar. After surfing, she arrives at a shop near the Gold Coast, where she meets a real estate agent named Mojis. He's looking for a cable to start his car, and since his car won't start, he asks for help. Zafar, who lives in a large camper van, is reluctant to assist because she prefers to be left alone. However, when she sees him struggling, she relents and helps him. As they talk, they discover they share a mutual interest in surfing. That evening, Zafar's van is parked outside Mojis' house, and they grow closer, becoming intimate. Meanwhile, Mojis throws a fin from a surfing board out of his van, unaware that Zafar needs it to fix her surfboard. As their relationship deepens, Mojis becomes serious about their connection, suggesting that they should stay together. But Zafar, who is not one to settle down, refuses to stay in one place. Even though Mojis is cooking breakfast for her, Zafar leaves before he returns with the pancakes, leaving Mojis heartbroken. Later, Zafar heads to the beach to surf, but realizes that she doesn't have the fin needed to fix her board. She notices a truck nearby and begins searching for a fin in it. Just then, she hears footsteps behind her. When she turns around, she's startled to see Tucker smiling at her. Without asking any questions, Tucker hands her a fin, telling her that he has plenty of them. He also compliments her courage for surfing alone. Zafar thanks him and begins fixing her surfboard. But just as she's about to reply to a message from Mojis asking her to join him for surfing, Tucker knocks her unconscious from behind and takes her with him. After a long drive, the real danger begins. After that, Tucker reaches his boat and throws Zafar onto it, taking her into the open sea. By morning, Mojis arrives at the beach, but Zafar is nowhere to be found. He tries calling her, but her phone rings inside the van. Tucker, being clever, removes Zafar's surfboard from the van and throws it away, leaving the phone behind to make it appear as though Zafar went surfing and drowned in the water. Meanwhile, Zafar wakes up, only to find herself tied to a bed in the lower cabin of the boat. To her shock, Hyder is also there, still alive, tied to a bed next to hers. Zafar panics and starts screaming, but her cries are unheard by anyone out in the vast ocean. Hyder tries to calm her down, explaining that they've been stuck here for a long time and no one will hear their voices. This revelation deepens Zafar's fear. She desperately searches for something to break free from the handcuffs, but there's nothing nearby. However, Zafar notices a name written on the wall, a name of a girl who must have been imprisoned here before, likely marking her final moments in despair. At that moment, Zafar realizes the magnitude of the horror they're facing. Meanwhile, Tucker is on deck, casually fishing. Zafar, in a trembling voice, asks Hyder if anyone will come looking for them. Hyder bitterly replies that her companion, the man who was with her on the boat, is gone. But when Zafar asks what happened to him, Hyder warns that she wouldn't want to know. Zafar, trying to hold back her tears, replies that no one would miss her either. But what she doesn't know is that Mojis is still thinking about her. When he notices that Zafar's van has been towed away from the beach, suspicion arises. He knows Zafar wouldn't leave without it. It's her home. Concerned, he heads straight to the police station. But the officer dismisses his worries, stating that Zafar is just a traveling surfer who probably went out somewhere. But Mojis doesn't give up and begins searching for Zafar on his own. Meanwhile, Zafar struggles all day, trying to free herself, but she remains trapped. Later, her attention shifts to Hyder's bikini, which has a thin wire inside it. Zafar pulls out the wire and attempts to unlock her handcuffs. As she does this, Tucker appears with bread and water. The room is unbearably hot, and both women are dehydrated. Hyder drinks quickly, but as she covers herself, Tucker grows suspicious. Before he can remove the blanket to investigate, Zafar distracts him, demanding her food. He hands it to her, and after a short time, Tucker leaves. Zafar resumes her attempt to free herself, but before she can make progress, she begins to feel drowsy. Tucker had spiked the water with a sedative. Before she can escape, Tucker catches her, and when Zafar regains consciousness, she finds herself bound to a chair on deck. Tucker has also tied Hyder to a harness. A camera is set up in front of them, and Tucker, grinning, begins delivering a bizarre speech. He praises sharks as the most powerful creatures on Earth and states that God isn't above, but below, under the water, where everything began and where it will end. After his rant, Tucker cuts a few of Hyder's hair strands as a trophy and then pours blood into the water, attracting a swarm of sharks. He releases Hyder into the water, and the sharks, drawn by the blood and Hyder's struggles, tear into her, killing her while Tucker films the entire scene. Zafar watches in horror as her worst fear comes true. Shaking with terror, she scribbles both her name and Hyder's on the wall, realizing that other names have already been written there and later painted over. These were the names of other girls who had been captured by Tucker, likely marking the end of their lives. Tucker wasn't just a psycho, he was a serial killer, and he had collected videos and strands of hair from all his victims. The next morning, Zafar witnesses the horrifying sight of Hyder's remains floating in the water, which terrifies her even more. Meanwhile, Mojis is still searching for Zafar on the beach. He finds her surfboard, and this increases his worry as he realizes her belongings are there, but she is nowhere to be found. Something is definitely wrong. That night, Tucker returns with bread and water for Zafar, but she's filled with rage. Kicking over the food and yelling at him, she calls him a worm, not a shark. Tucker doesn't respond and leaves in silence. Soon after, Zafar notices a bucket nearby. She breaks the handle off and fashions it into a sharp weapon, knowing Tucker will come back. True to her suspicion, Tucker returns with a syringe, intending to knock her out. But just as he approaches, Zafar attacks him with the sharp bucket handle, driving it into his body. Tucker screams in pain and stumbles back. Zafar quickly grabs the key from his pocket and frees herself, but Tucker manages to inject her in the leg before collapsing. Slowly, she begins to lose consciousness. Zafar attempts to call for help via the radio, but there's no response. Just as she's about to lose hope, she spots a boat in the distance. She screams for attention, but the boat is hosting a party, and her cries go unheard. At that moment, Tucker arrives. Zafar grabs his camera, but he demands it back. In a fit of anger, Zafar throws the camera into the water, and in the process, she herself falls into the sea. She desperately swims, hoping to reach the distant boat, but loses consciousness halfway. Tucker rescues her from the water, brings her back to the boat, and locks her in the cabin again. Since he no longer has the camera, he can't record the moment, so he decides to postpone killing her, planning instead to buy a new camera. He heads back toward shore, locking Zafar inside once more. Meanwhile, the police are on the lookout for Zafar, and Mojis is still deeply worried. He checks the CCTV footage from the parking lot and spots Tucker's truck, which has the logo of Tucker's Experience on it. With this clue, Mojis tracks down the location and reaches the boat. As soon as he steps onto the boat, he hears Zafar's screams from below. He breaks into the boat and rushes down. Zafar, seeing him, feels both relieved and shocked, wondering how he managed to find her after everything that had happened. Zafar asks Mojis to bring something from above to help her escape, and he goes upstairs to call the police. However, just as Mojis calls, Tucker arrives and attacks him. The call to the police goes through, but Tucker prevents Mojis from speaking and destroys his phone, leaving him badly injured. Despite this, Mojis refuses to give up and nearly manages to overpower Tucker. But just then, Dave arrives and attacks Mojis, unaware of what Tucker had been doing. As soon as Dave hears Zafar's voice, he begins to understand the truth, but it's too late. Before he can act, Tucker viciously kills him. Tucker realizes that staying near shore is no longer safe. He takes the boat to a remote island and ties Mojis to a bed next to Zafar. Mojis begins to express his feelings, but before he can finish, Tucker drags them both to the deck. He has decided to record the next part of his show today. This time, he tries a different method. He tosses pieces of Dave's dismembered body into the water to attract sharks. Then, he shoves Mojis into the water, but Zafar has already warned him that no sudden movements should be made in the presence of sharks. Mojis stays completely still, and it works. The sharks sniff around him but don't attack. After a while, Tucker pulls Mojis back onto the boat but grows more ruthless, stomping on him multiple times before throwing him back into the water. Mojis is barely hanging on to life when he notices a lifeguard helicopter searching for Zafar above. In a panic, Tucker drags Mojis and Zafar back inside and locks them up. Mojis is gravely injured, barely breathing, while Zafar watches helplessly. Determined not to wait any longer, Zafar tries to free her hand from the handcuffs, but it doesn't work. In desperation, she breaks her thumb to pull her hand out. When that doesn't work either, she resorts to using her teeth to tear off her thumb. Once free, she quickly escapes her restraints. Just as she does, Tucker arrives with a syringe to sedate her. But Zafar tricks him, pushing him into a room and locking him inside. She rushes upstairs to start the boat's engine, but Tucker finds an alternate way to reach the deck and shuts down the system. Zafar realizes she only has one chance to fight and escape. She engages in a fierce battle with Tucker, and when the opportunity arises, she leaps into the water, seeing an island in the distance where a wedding reception is underway. However, her hand is bleeding and sharks are in the water, while Tucker follows her in a small boat. Zafar reaches the island, but before she can do anything, Tucker captures her again and knocks her unconscious, taking her back to the boat. This time, Tucker is certain that Zafar is the real threat, not Mojis. He switches roles, tying Mojis to a chair and placing Zafar in a harness. He prepares to record his new show. Just then, a great white shark arrives, scaring Tucker as all the other sharks flee. He stares at the shark for a long time, remembering how it attacked him when he was a child. Despite the fear, Tucker still feels a strange affection for it, calling it his god. Without hesitation, Tucker releases Zafar into the water, but she's still fully conscious. Tucker grabs a harpoon, intending to provoke the shark. However, the harpoon slips from his hand and ends up near Zafar. Using the harpoon, Zafar frees herself and manages to escape into the water. Zafar falls into the water, and as she sinks, she sees a shark coming toward her. But instead of attacking, the shark merely swims past her, perhaps sensing that she, like itself, is a survivor. This moment gives Zafar renewed strength. She climbs back onto the boat and engages in a fierce battle with Tucker. Though Tucker is stronger and nearly captures her, an injured Mojis arrives from behind, hitting Tucker on the head with a metal rod. Tucker loses his balance and falls into the water. As soon as he hits the water, his wounds start bleeding, and the scent of blood attracts the sharks. Tucker, terrified, begins to scream, but no one hears him. Within moments, the sharks swarm him, ripping him apart in a brutal attack. His death, like the videos he had recorded of women in pain, becomes a live show for the sharks. But this time, there's no audience. Meanwhile, Zafar, determined to survive, picks up a flare gun and fires it into the sky. The flare bursts into a bright light, signaling for help. Moments later, a police boat appears in the distance, likely having traced Mojis' incomplete call. As the boat reaches them, the police rescue Zafar and Mojis. Mojis is in critical condition, but Zafar refuses to let go of him, holding on tightly. As they sit on the police boat, Zafar looks back at the island where her terrifying ordeal had come to an end. Slowly, Mojis begins to regain consciousness. He looks at her, takes her hand, and says, "I told you, we met for a reason." The ocean, vast and unforgiving, may have been the setting of their darkest moments, but now it is merely a chapter closed. With each passing wave, they move toward a new horizon, where hope and survival are not just distant dreams, but a hard-earned reality. The scars will remain, but so will their strength as they journey forward, together bound not just by fate, but by the will to overcome. The world may be full of shadows, but with each dawn, there's always the promise of light.